Hello, everybody. It's really good to see you. Good afternoon. And, I've been talking with a few of you earlier, and I am very inspired by all the stories that I've heard so far. And I have the pleasure today of being here to share the stage with my esteemed panelists. And perhaps I'll just give a very quick run-through. I'm sure many of you would have read already, maybe the synopsis, but I'm very much in awe by the successes that each of these individuals bring through their companies and through their own rich experiences. So first up, we have Ms. Chan Huang Yi, CEO of the Education Group, ICR Education Group, and she has I Can Read, Oodles, and On Sponge. Now, she has been very instrumental in growing the business, and I was talking with Huang Yi earlier. She has 14 markets with over 160 learning centers and 15 years of experience behind her, proven track record already, and she has really made a mark in the education business. And then we have also Bernard, and Bernard has been, if you look at his name card, he has lots of brands under him. I don't know how he sleeps at night because he's probably very, very busy. And he has been instrumental in running the KC Group with K-Cuts, Clippers, Skin, everything that is, I'm sure many of you can identify with grooming and lifestyle, right? And he has also been winning a lot of prestigious brand awards and taking, again, his brand international as well as in Singapore, more than 200 outlets already. And then last but not least, we have at the extreme right hand, Bernard Chia Liang, right? And Chia Liang has got starting also a very rich experience dating back 35 years, where he was also instrumental in bringing household names to Singapore, growing them. Many of you who have children and who, like me, are big children, you still have McDonald's in your household pretty often, I think, and he has been instrumental in running and spearheading the McDonald's delivery previously, and now he is with Jumbo. So very different experiences, and I'm sure we can hear from them and learn from them today. All things that we all identify with. Without further ado, perhaps I can hand over to Huang Yi, and would you like to share with us, sort of starting your journey? What was it like for you? Because you took over the business, right? And then you grew it to what it is today with so many outlets and with an international footprint. And you yourself are a woman of, very international woman, as I understand, because she's been living in many different countries and having lived the culture. Perhaps you'd like to share a little bit about your experiences with I Can Read. Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Huang Yi here. Most people call me HY for short, for those who cannot pronounce my dialect name. I'm very pleased to be here and honored. In fact, today is my first time participating in an FLA event. So very excited and a little bit fearful, to be honest. So I'll share with you my experience in the ICR journey. I was working as a professional, pretty much like many of you, perhaps in your previous life. I was in advertising and in media. I spent about 10 years in that industry, and before that, I was in pulp and paper, manufacturing. So very different. But between the two companies that I used to work for, I've lived in Indonesia, Hong Kong, Japan, Shanghai, parts of North America. So I returned to Singapore in 2008 because I did the usual thing that most women will go through. I had a baby. And then the second baby happened shortly after. So during that time, I was wondering, I needed to ground myself, and I needed to start a business. And business was something that it has always been in my mind. So that was what I did. So we looked for a business that you could resonate with, and it was education. I come from a family of many, many teachers. I thought that I would be a teacher one day, but my father said no. Fast forward. So we acquired the ICR business in 2012 from two Australian education psychologists. They were the original founders of the business. But it was primarily in Singapore, and it was a franchise business. So I was a user. As a parent, my kids went through ICR, I Can Read, and I saw the wonders of that curriculum, and I thought, wow, they can read in like a year. I want to take this brand outside of Singapore, and after a lot of negotiation, we bought over the business, and using my previous corporate experience, running regional businesses, I took the brand together with my team, we expanded to, Southeast Asia first, right? That's our usual footprint, Southeast Asia. And then now we are looking at Asia. So I was sharing with some other friends just now. I think Sanil, right? I was sharing with you that this year we are looking at our expansion into Japan, the US, as well as Korea and Brazil. So these are the few markets that we're actively working on. And so other than I Can Read, which is a 3 to 12-year-old English literacy program for children, right? And of course, we've got our English syllabus. We have recently acquired Oodles Learning, that's math, and we developed our Chinese program called 粤学了. We launched it in November last year. So what we plan to do is to leverage on our ICR distribution network, right? And the relationships that we have formed with the schools, with the K-12 schools overseas. And we want to then bring Singapore Math and our Chinese language program to these new markets. So that, in a nutshell, is my experience with franchising so far. I don't know anything about franchising. In fact, it was Albert, right? Asia franchise. Thank you, who really introduced me to the world of franchise. And I think my franchise journey really started in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HY. I think it's amazing, right, to hear your story and to see how industry veterans like Albert has enriched a lot of us in this room here today. I think sharing the experiences, because what we all want to do today really is to absorb all the goodness, the good practices, and also to learn from the mistakes that many of us have already encountered. So maybe with that, I will hand over to Bernard. Would you like to now share your story, which is also probably a little bit more different from HY's?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bernard from KC Group. Thank you so much for the privilege to be here this afternoon to share with you our journey. So, some of you may know and have used our service. We are primarily in hair and beauty. So we are known for K-Cuts, Clippers, Barber, K-Skin. So thank God, our journey has been about 12 years. Since 2013, we managed to grow locally to 218 outlets right now. And last year, we had the opportunity to expand one of our brands overseas. Right, we think that there's great potential beyond Singapore. So we went into Malaysia ourselves last year, and we had a few licensees, and then we also expanded into Philippines via an aerial development franchise partner. And also end of last year, we went into USA, Atlanta, Georgia. So that's the brand of K-Skin. I mean, I have many things to share with you, but I shan't hold back the panel discussion. We'll share more along the way.
And over to you, Chia Liang.
Hi, I'm Chia Liang from Jumbo. I think I started my career was in Army time when actually I'm a vehicle mechanic that actually assigned for 5 years. From there, actually, I came out from Army. Actually, I switched over to SMRT Life, so it's a total different. So when MRT, the time actually the MRT not run yet, so at that time. So from there, I was there for about 2-3 years, and opportunity came, where McDonald's actually hired for management trainee. That's where I joined them as a management trainee, and from there, I grew in McDonald's for 20 years. So McDonald's is a very good learning ground for me and for most of our colleagues there. So from there, after 20 years, actually, I started to move out from McDonald's, going to Popeyes, and then at the end, landed up in Crystal Jade before I come to Jumbo Seafood. Okay, in Jumbo Seafood, when I joined, at the time was headhunted by Mr. Ang, my boss, CEO, that invited me over. So I'm looking at a brand, and the brand itself, the brand is the brand awareness was quite strong. So I decided to join them. And then we started the first franchising in 2017 at Vietnam. And ultimately now we grow to about 15 outlets in globally, not global Asia. Now totally we got 46 restaurants in the whole Asia of 7 countries, 15 cities now. Self-owned itself, we have about 50% of them, and about 33% actually is franchise, 15 restaurants, and the remaining is joint venture. Yeah.
Yeah, on that note, that's very interesting. I mean, as a legal advisor for us, every time we see clients, when they come to see us, they have big plans because you have a business you believe in, right? And you want to be able to expand that footprint. Now, there are two ways you can do it, right? One way you do it is you do it yourself. But then also the risk is very high because then the risk is just entirely yours. But then if you want to scale up, and what's the best way then to scale up without necessarily putting in all of your capital, right? And so we're looking at other options of how to generate revenue. And perhaps you can share that with us, HY, in terms of, how did you, what were the formats you considered or the structures you considered adopting? Go in on your own, to get a partner, get a franchise, what was it? Or even just licensing your curriculum, right?
Sure, we considered all these options, but I guess the most straightforward one for us from a company perspective back then was franchising. And like I shared earlier, we didn't know anything about franchise, right? So we had to learn what is the meaning of franchise, what the role and responsibilities of being a franchisor, a brand owner, and then likewise the responsibilities of a franchisee. So we started off equipping ourselves with that knowledge. We prepared our franchise framework, which included the SOP, the legal framework, right, and the financial model. Whether or not, this, when you open this outlet, whether is it ourselves or the franchisee is going to make sense or not. So our first franchise was in Indonesia. In fact, we started on our own first, right? We set up a PT. We got legal advice, of course, and then we understood, all the different legislative criteria, what were the important things you need to think about in terms of repatriating your funds, etc. And being a Singaporean company, to be honest, it was very difficult to hire people. So we parachuted our own people down to Jakarta first, build up the team, and within a year, we told ourselves that within 1.5 years max, we will localize the team because it was, it was very difficult. Even though Indonesia is Southeast Asia, right? There are different cultures. It's still a different culture and different norms that you have to be very aware of. And that was the reason why we localized the team quite quickly. And I felt that was one of the things that we did right. But there were also a lot of wrongs along the way, which I will share that for later.
Thank you so much. And perhaps I pass the mic over then to, maybe we jump a little bit to Chia Liang first. Maybe Chia Liang, you'd like to talk a little bit about Jumbo and, how it was that you then started to expand your footprint and what models worked and what didn't and why.
Actually, Jumbo started go overseas is in 2013, where we go into Shanghai. So at that time, actually, Jumbo, we don't have any experience of going overseas. So we joint venture together with BreadTalk. So BreadTalk at that time was already went into China market, and they are very strong in that. So together with them, we actually went into Shanghai and landed in Shanghai and expand from there. Until 2017, that's where I joined them that time. So that's where we started to go beyond Singapore market, go beyond these two countries into a franchise model. So at that time when I joined that time, actually 3 things I look at Jumbo. One is this model a proven model, business model, number one. So I look at it, Jumbo, yeah, it's a proven model. 2 is the brand awareness, is it very strong? At the moment in Singapore are quite strong. Number 3, I'm looking at that is that their operation efficiency, is it there? So I visited the Jumbo a few times before I joined them. So I see these 3 propositions are there. So it's really like, it's good to go in and move into that. So as we move in that time, I was asking my boss, so in terms of franchise, what kind of model you want to actually to go into franchise? You want to go unit, you want to go area, or you want to go master? You see, so at that time he was telling me that I think we start with area franchise first. You see, so at that time we'll say, okay, area franchise. So where are we going to start first? You see, so my suggestion to him is we start with the low-hanging fruit around Singapore first, which is...
My area franchise also because the comfort as long as size or...
I think at that time we are a little bit more hungry. Well, let's go into franchise area so that we can lock on a few a few location, in a couple of years for opening. You see, on that part of that. So that's why after that I said, so I said, why not we map around Southeast Asia country first, and then we start from there, to start to look into source to any franchisee that is available. So along the way, actually, 2 countries came to us. One is actually Vietnam, which Ho Chi Minh City, and the second one is actually Thailand, Bangkok, came to us. So we chosen this, and Ho Chi Minh happened to came in a bit earlier on that part of it. So we just decided to sign an area franchise with Ho Chi Minh. And later I'll share with you why we should move from area actually back to unit now we are doing. Yeah, so the learning curve that so we went into area franchise in Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, so from there, that's where we start to do things like preparing things like SOP, recipe. I think one thing that in franchise, we are always very worried that we give the recipe and people copy, and ultimately another, not say jumbo, maybe Jimbo or something may come out next to it, and compete with you see. So that is something that we safeguard that. So in the SOP, what we do is actually, first thing is actually our menu is quite rich at that moment. We got probably about 100 over dishes in our menu. So what we did is actually we shortlisted 20 signature dish. That is what the idea actually came from. The initiative came from actually McDonald's. Like you go McDonald's, you see Big Mac, McChicken, Filet-O-Fish, all these other the so-called signature product. So we picked the 20 most signature product based on what is the most commonly sold in our restaurant, the top 20 item. So that actually lock on to the 20 signature product. So every country we go, you should able to see this 20 product on our menu. So from this 20 product, we go dissect down into developing proprietary sauce onto this product. Initially, we only have 2 or 3 proprietary sauce. It started in Ho Chi Minh. Until today, we have about 14 proprietary sauce that can cover almost 20 of our signature product, you see. So, and then from there, we develop into SOP, into using the proprietary product, so that even they steal our SOP, the proprietary product, they don't know what is inside our ingredient unless they do a reverse engineering, on that part of that.
I think that's certainly something which is very, very key. Many people, there's always a toss-up between, if I expand, I'm going to let somebody into my secrets, right? How do I protect that? How do I protect my business model? How do I protect what is key to me that makes me successful without somebody ripping off my ideas and my hard work? And underscoring all of that, I mean, I'm an IP lawyer, therefore I have to make a plug for IP, right? Underscoring all of that, and I'm serious when I say that you do need to look at what is special to you. What is unique to you in your business, right? We've got brands, you've got trade secrets, you've got, as you say, recipes that are proprietary, and you've also got copyright in certain of these artworks and things as part of your brand. And at the heart of it, right, you do need to have your fundamentals right, and you do need to have all these things protected first, and then also piggyback that with the documentation, which I think is what a lot of them have already shared with us. And now over then to maybe Bernard.
Sure, let me share. Okay, so our journey into franchising started very much locally, where we expanded K-Cards. One of the reasons why we chose franchising in Singapore to expand our brand is because, as most of you in the service and retail are aware, quota is always a big challenge, right? And with our business, we need a lot of manpower. And under HQ, there's no way, as much as we hire many Singaporeans and PR to work, and we give them like concessionary working hours, very good benefits, we are not able to hire as many as we want to generate the number of quotas to support the number of outlets that we intend to have. So franchise is definitely one of the big advantage you can actually ride on to expand your brand locally. And so what we did was that, as we expand K-Cards in Singapore, we thought it would be great if we can bring this brand beyond Singapore, because we have technology, right? I mean, back then, we still don't have our app. Right now, how many of you are K-Cards user? All right, are you aware we have an app, K-Cards Go app, where you can buy your ticket cashless, and you can actually queue without being in front of your store. That's a lot of advantage. So back then, it was before COVID. We didn't have any technology. And so what we say, we're like, okay, but we have our our cash kiosk machine, our SOP and all stuff. So let's try to bring it beyond Singapore. So what we did was that we actually went Malaysia, KL franchise show, participated. So everyone walked past. So what we do, being in the non-food, it makes us a little bit more outstanding because if you go to a franchise show, most of them are F&B, okay? But one of the main challenges that we faced was that, oh, do you have a store in Malaysia? Like, I don't have any store yet. Then, when you say you don't have a store or a presence there, very likely, right, they will not be very confident to be the first one to champion it. And we did the same also in Indonesia. We went there, it was difficult, Bahasa language. We had to even hire a translator for us. And they say, no store? Sorry, not able to do. Yeah, then shortly, COVID came. But it was a blessing in disguise. We had some inquiries, some people were very keen. But because of COVID, right, we actually, through it, put that thought to expand regionally on hold. And we work on the digitization of our app. And right now with the app, I think we are more ready this time to grow, regionally for K-Cuts brand. But let's talk about K-Skin brand. All right, so K-Skin is very different from K-Cuts because K-Cuts is very much a service business, right? We don't have products at K-Cuts, right? You don't see me selling you your core, right? Yeah. So at K-Skin, we have our own proprietary products, skincare range and all stuff, and we have our treatments, our SOP. So we do get a lot of inquiries from overseas, people wanting to like consider our brand, bring it overseas. But usually what we do, right, is that we will need to filter through carefully because you don't want to waste your time with unscrupulous partners. You also don't want to waste your time with people who are not in business. Okay, so we have a few criteria right now. I don't mind sharing with you. We will not consider a potential inquiry as potential if this person, right, from overseas does not have a prior retail or service or even business experience. Imagine the person has been working long in a corporate job and also, not that, we look down on them, no, but the learning curve to do a business, right, to understand how to manage people, how to handle the laws of the land, it's too steep for them. If they have not even started a business before in their own country, then I don't think I want to work with them, right? And then we have a lot of people also inquiring from us, individual unit. So me and my business partners were like, individual unit, should we consider or not consider? So we came to a conclusion, we shouldn't consider. Why? Because to teach one person and with only intention to open 1 or 2 units is too tedious. You might want to just be a bit more patient and wait for the right partner before we expand into the market. Because if we can find a partner that has some experience in the retail or in the service industry, and they have the network to open up more outlets at a faster pace, I think that's where we as the brand owner, as the franchisor, is prepared and willing to give them as much support to make sure that the brand flourish in that country. And so that's what happened in Philippines. We are blessed to find a partner, all right, in Manila. All right, they actually came and looked for us. And it was through duty and all stuff that we finally agreed to work with them. And so what happened is that they have been in business for about 20 years. And they have been distributing their own hair coloring to salons in Philippines. They distribute to about 4,000 salons. So when we visited them, they had their own warehouse, they had their own training facilities, because as they distribute all these professional colors, they also have to provide training. They will say, yeah, this is the right company. But they are right not because of this, but the character of the bosses. As we get to know them better, we think that, they have that integrity and that commitment. And so we are very pleased right now. We have about 15 stores in Philippines, and it's growing. And it's a very wonderful working relationship. Thank you.
That sounds really, really excellent. And maybe right now, if we're looking at how do I become successful, right? And how do I make my business successful? what are the things that you need to start preparing in order to take your business international? Maybe we can start with you, Chia Liang. What are things that you should be thinking if I am now sitting here thinking, okay, I want to expand, right? Whether I expand locally or next step, even bolder, international. What would you say how would you start preparing a business for that?
I think first thing is you need to look into all your SOP to make sure that all your training program are in place, your SOP is in place, and then whether for our experience that the whole workflow is already mapped out, your market list, all these are ready to that. Then the next thing is actually the legal part of it, where your franchise agreement, okay, are all in place or not. Then your trademark, whether you have registered a trademark in the country. Also, in some country, you may need to even look into the regulatory part of that. Let's say like Indonesia, Vietnam, China, you need to really go into it, spend a bit more time in terms of registration, because it take a bit more longer time than maybe like Singapore. So all these you need to prep up everything, and then together with your operation manual to be ready in hand, then you can actually go out to market for that. Yeah, and then lastly is you start recruiting, you need to prepare your sales kit in place, your term sheet, so that people will start asking you for all this detail, like how big a restaurant you think you are in, what kind of number you are thinking that, what are your critical number that in a P&L that you are looking at, all this kind of thing.
I think you touched on, you said you need to have your guide and your manuals, operation manuals and your service deliverables, right? I think that's, of course, very key, right? Because you want to have the same consumer experience, whether it's here or whether it's there. They should not feel a difference. It should be seamless, and that's your brand identity at the heart of it, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So you eat a chili crab in Singapore, you should eat the same chili crab in any part of the world. Yeah.
And I think that's, can you tell the difference?
Oh, definitely, we can tell the difference.
Yeah, the jumbo at Vietnam.
Oh yes, definitely, because I've been, every half a year I'll be going auditing. So auditing is like, I may eat about more than 30 or 50 kind of chili crab, over the trip.
So you're a king of chili crabs now.
My king is actually my boss.
Maybe Huang Yi, would you have in your industry, is it similar or are there differences there?
Oh, it's okay, I'll take. I guess there are lots of similarities and differences as well. Like I shared earlier, we went into Indonesia, our first franchise market, directly ourselves. And in fact, we used the same approach in multiple other markets where we set up our own legal entity, we own and we control it, and then we become the master franchisee in that market. And we build up the team locally before we sub-franchise. And I guess from my experience, right, I think that education, you need to do a show and tell, and you need to have physical presence, right? Especially if I want to run a learning center. So if I were to go to a franchise show, like you say, if I don't have an outlet, I don't think anyone's going to really believe me. You don't know the market, you don't know how to attract the parents or talk to the parents, you don't know the local marketing landscape. It will be very difficult for you to be successful. So the approach, we did the do it yourself first. Then once you know the market, you know how to control the marketing, the social media, how to recruit, how to find the local talent, localize your SOP, right? You've got all your trademarks all registered and all that. Then we started to sub-franchise, and us being the master franchisee for that market. Like in Vietnam, that was exactly what we did. The same thing for Malaysia and the same thing for Hong Kong. But there are markets where we are totally clueless. We are not familiar at all, like Japan, Korea. We don't speak the language, right? Language is one very big barrier, and the cultural gap is too big. So for those markets, right, I would actually just look for a distributor partner, right? Or I do a licensing, find a master licensee whom we can work with, and then distribute our curriculum from there. So over the years, right, we've also looked at how we can make ourselves asset light, because setting up a learning center is heavy capex, right? Not only for us, like, during COVID, all the more than 160 centers were closed. Can you imagine the amount of rental that we have to pay, right? That was horrible. Well, we survived. So we started looking at how to monetize our IP. And we do so through what we call curriculum licensing. So I don't set up a center. I've got great curriculum. We will now, send our curriculum to the private K-12 schools. We will train their teachers on how to enact and deliver the curriculum. And we grow from there. So, for example, that's what we're going to do in Brazil. And that's the same approach that we will do in the US. Did I really answer your question?
Yes, you did. You're sort of giving people ideas in terms of also how to generate revenue from all the different aspects of the business. It's not just based on simple one outlet opening fee, but it's also based on continuing how you extend that longevity as well through the product licensing, through the curriculum.
I guess when you also have presence, right, in some countries, and when you then bring your franchise out, you're more believable, right? Like Myanmar, there is no way that we're going to set up our head office there. So, but because our Burmese franchise partners saw that, hey, we have a strong presence in Thailand, in Malaysia, in Singapore, Indonesia, for example. So that's why they believed that, okay, this brand they can take to Yangon and Mandalay and set up the center using the same SOP, the same concept.
Bernard, do you have anything to add?
Okay, let me add. I think, like both Huang Yi as well as Chia Liang mentioned, SOP is extremely important because this is something that, you want to ensure that your service, your brand, is consistent. All right, and so this is something that we spend a lot of time and resource in-house. We have a training department. So in my training department, I have 3 personnel. One does training doc, one does training ops, implementation, and then the other one is testing and assessment. So I think if you want to do well, right, for your franchise, you need to have a serious thought on how do you ensure that the SOP is well executed in the foreign land.
Yeah. I think all very, very excellent advice there. But now we move on to something which a few of you have touched on as well, peripherally. In terms of your success, one big factor really is selecting your partner, right? What are the things you think about when you actually go about selecting the person or the company or the party you want to work with? And perhaps we can start with Huang Yi.
When we look for unit franchisees or area or master, we have what we call a franchise rating form. We have a franchise rating form, and against each of whether or not they're a unit, an area, or master, we have different criteria, right? So over the years, we've been using that, and we've found that to be actually very useful. So the criteria we've sent out are different. So for example, there is a list of 10 criteria for a unit franchise. First and foremost, we look at whether or not they have the financial ability, because setting up a franchise requires capital, right? So in our type of business, right, you need to have maybe at least 350,000 in the Singapore context, right? 350,000. Maybe in Indonesia, you need to have at least 150,000 because you need to pay the rent 3 years to 5 years in advance, one shot, right? So if you don't have that amount of money, so it's very difficult, and whether or not you have the working capital to go forward. Financial is one. Then we look at whether or not the franchisee ties in with our philosophy and our values. I think that is extremely important because a franchisor and a franchisee type of relationship requires a lot of mutual trust and respect. So like SOP, right? If they don't respect our SOP, they're not going to follow our SOP. There's no way. Yes, you can localize, you can adapt. There are certain things that you can agree because that's the local nuance. But there are some non-negotiable items, right? Like you can't change your jumbo crab sauce or your cake cut to something else, right? So I guess it's the same for us. So tying in with our values and our philosophy is one, the financial commitment. I think thirdly is whether or not they are entrepreneurial. We have franchisees who are professionals. They have no business background, a bit different from your experience. but they have the commitment and they want to. And for these franchisees, right, to be honest, we would actually spend time. And once they understand the ropes of the business, right, and they're committed, I think that they will do a really, really good job and they go really far. But I must admit that along the way, we also have franchisees whom we thought that, hey, they're going to be really good. But, in the end, it either fail or they walk away because they don't have the patience. So for franchise, our unit franchise is for 5 years, master is for 8 to 10 years, right? So they must have that long-term commitment. So I think these are the few key criteria that I really look for, in selection of a franchisee. And this is, I think we will all agree, this is one of the critical success.
Gentlemen, the same for you, or anything else different to add?
I second Huang Yi in terms of everything she said. So let me just clarify, right? I think because Huang Yi has like local presence, hence you can work with non-business people, right? Yeah, because if let's say it's a virgin market, then I don't think you want to do that, right? Because the learning curve will be very steep for both parties. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you that our franchise partner is very important. So actually, we also have a list of interviewing. So actually, we have different stage. So when the franchisee came, usually I'll be the first round to interview them, to make sure that they meet all our criteria. For Jumbo, it's a bit more, probably a bit more higher investment cost that, so every Jumbo, at least you need to come with $1 million, of ready for the investment in that, you see. So then we need to really look for a little bit more higher end kind of franchisee. So got money also not that, also whether they got commitment or not. Rich people, I think there are quite a lot around this part of the world, but whether they take the franchise already to them, this is like little money to them, let's say they can pay to them. See, but then that's where we need to really get them to have the commitment level, to really commit that they want to bring this brand forward. Yeah, so earlier I was mentioning that from area, we try in a Ho Chi Minh area, but after we work for about 2 years, we realized that their growth is a bit more slower. So, so there's no much motivation for them. Let's say, so the second outlet that we opened in Taiwan, we decided to change it to a unit franchise. No doubt they are very hungry. I want to have area. I want to the whole Taipei. I want to open 4 restaurants in the next 4 years. I said, no, let's start with one first. Show us that this one you do very well. I will give you the second one. So that's how we start to grow in Taiwan, in Bangkok. Bangkok, that's where they come to us. I want the second one, very hungrily after the second year. So I say, okay, you're able to produce a result, you're making money, and then let's come down and do an audit. If you audit, you can pass the audit. So you meet the 2 criteria, we'll let you open for the next outlet. So that's why you need a very committed franchisee, and also for us, it's a lot more deep in the pocket. COVID time is something that very challenging for us. In fact, we only lost 1 franchisee in the whole COVID, because luckily the franchisee have a bit more deep in the pocket at that time.
As you say, I think in our experience also, we've seen quite a few, businesses who we work with very closely. And one of the things that come out very strongly, you're right, is the commitment and passion from both sides, the franchisor as well as the franchisee. And I think one of the things that came through very, very strongly, especially during COVID, was a mutual respect and commitment between both, and also a belief in the brand and wanting it to succeed. I think these were the ones that survived the most were those where you really wanted, in good times and bad times, like a marriage, you kind of want it to work and you want to work through all the difficulties. Yeah. But having said that, there will be challenges in your journey. So perhaps, would you like to share some of the things where, looking back, they were pretty big boulders in the way, and how and what were challenges that you felt were tough, and how you managed to overcome some of these things?
No, thank you. I'm thinking, but before that, I probably want to share, lots. I just want to share one, our experience in the Middle East, right? Everyone thinks that Middle East is, wow, lots of money, you want to get there, and, and they have a high purchasing power. But in fact, right, we lost the most money in Middle East. I'll just share this story here within these 4 walls. We lost close to $1.5 million, right, in the Middle East, simply because we chose the wrong partner. We chose the wrong partner. We set up big learning centers, right? We hired the lawyers, we hired the accountants, we set up our structure. But what we did not realize was, the partner, they actually had ulterior motive. We did not diligence hard enough, Even though you do your coffees and your meetings and your hello, mwah, 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 and all that, it didn't come through, right? But then as we went into the business, and it was during COVID as well, it was very tough because we were saddled with heavy rents, right? We paid a lot of professional fees, and then, we hired teachers, but there were not enough students because everyone was, at home. Then we realized that they wanted to know about our curriculum. They wanted to take our IP, right? We also trademarked, by the way. There was no copyright law, so I cannot register. So they wanted all of that. And what happened was they took one of our key staff. For whatever reason, they had connections to the police, right? So they took one of our key staff and basically threw him into jail. And we had to basically bail the person out, right? We had to bail the person out. Cut long story short, we paid a lot of money to bail the person out, right? We also paid a lot of money and hired, a lawyer to basically dissolve the whole thing and to ensure that they do not use our IP and we are protected both ways. So I think that I felt compelled to share this, although it's very confidential. I think that it will save everybody a lot of time and effort. So doing your legal due diligence and all that is really, you still have risk, right? So when you go into a new market, right, you must actually be prepared to lose it. You must set aside a sum of money that so much so that it will not hurt your core business. So you don't dump all your eggs in one basket. So we were okay because we felt that, okay, we already set aside a certain amount of money that we will invest in the Middle East, for example, or any new market, right? If it fails, it's a learning curve. So will I go into the Middle East market again? Yes, I am smarter now. I know a lot more about the market and the legality and who I can talk to, who are the fixers, right? So yes, I will go into the Middle East market again, but it was expensive learning. So I hope that maybe this sharing, right, will really make all of you think twice before you jump into a new market. Although I'm not really answering your question.
It's okay. The challenges is really, again, right, one of it is due diligence, right? And the due diligence not only of the market, but of the entity and the partner you are going to partner with. I think that is also very fundamental, and I cannot underscore that because a lot of the problems we're asked to fix boils down because the party they were with could not be trusted, right? Or was not very. There was no good faith in the partnership in the end. And I think this really is one of your challenges. So you have answered the question perfectly, actually. And maybe now I move on again to Bernard.
Sure. Well, thanks for sharing that lesson. Yeah, so for us, right, because like when we open up in Philippines, one of the things that we need to do, right, is to register our products in the market. And so when you work with a partner there are two things you can do. One is that you give your partner everything, your ingredients, your formulation and everything, and then they register it, all right? But that is very high risk. So what we did was that through ESG, Enterprise Singapore, we actually engage a third-party vendor that basically holds license, all this formulation, filings and all stuff, pay them. You have to pay them a retainer as well because they are on a retainer basis. And as well, the onboarding fee for each of the product. So we actually did that. But having done that, paid the fee and all stuff, right, we still occasionally have issues getting our products in. It gets stuck at the custom. Yeah, so the partner that you work with needs to have good connections also to get the products out. Yeah.
So that's the little thing that we say, because there could be delays, right? And then your partner need the products, and here you have already sent, it's already in their country, it's just it's stuck at the custom. Then what can we do? Because the registration is done by us via the third-party vendor, but yet the custom is giving some challenges, right? So hence, you need to find, because they, remember I mentioned, they do their own hair color products and all stuff. Hence, they have ways to get around the customs.
And sometimes they're quite sneaky. We do see a lot of distributors, as they call them, right? And then suddenly when our client looks in the market because they said, oh, this is a gap in my IP protection, I haven't done it. Then they realize that actually the distributors that are supposed to be on their site have registered it in their own name. Okay? So if you can get it back, good for you. But if they disappear or if they challenge you, then you've lost your market. So again, please do your homework before you go into the market, because these are very hard lessons and they cost a lot of money. So some of them have even said, you want it, I'll sell it back to you, right? But that's not, and many of them who are also sometimes, bless them, they're quite ignorant when some of the clients come to us and they said, oh, my client, my distributor said to just let them register in their own name because they're local party, they're faster and it's easy. But then there's no paperwork between them to show that actually you are doing this still on my behalf, right? And so please just be aware, okay? And perhaps, Chelam.
For us, I think in my experience of these last 8 years, two challenges that I cannot, in my good memory. One is actually in Korea, where we import in our product, and Korea is very stringent in all the product when they import it. So they pick it up that we are in Singapore, in this part of the world, in our Southeast Asia, candle nut is very common in most of our product. You very in Mee Rebus or in chili crab, we use candle nut. But in Korea, candle nuts is a poisonous product. So even though over here we go and prove to them that after cook you eat already, you will not die. This is not toxic. This is not a poisonous product. They don't believe in it. They just rejected your so-called your application for the import license. So it took us a long while, in order for us to R&D using another product to replace candle nut. We try many kind of nuts until we get macadamia nut, which is very, very close to the candle nut, and then we're able to penetrate in and go into the market. So that's one challenge that we face. The second challenges we face is in Vietnam. That is even more interesting is that in Vietnam, when we start to go in franchise, we start signing a franchise agreement. As well, most of you will start to collect the first deposit money over to Singapore. Then about to open, you will collect the more bigger sum for that. So when we go to collect the bigger sum at the time, the bank come and tell you that cannot transfer your money to you because you are not registered in the franchise activity with the Ministry of Industry and Trade in Vietnam. So I said, oh, so how? So I went to the Ministry of Industry and Trade. So he's telling me that you need 1 year for the application. So I said, oh no, 1 year, how? I'm going to open in another 3 months' time. So how to wait for 1 year? So I went back to talk to our franchisee, which at the time is the second largest real estate in Vietnam. So I told the chairman, I said, cannot open, sorry. We need to postpone the opening 1 year later. He said, how come? He said, because. I said, because you need to have 1 year to apply. He said, don't need. Mr. Tan, all you need is, I get you a lawyer, you get this lawyer to apply. Once apply already, you give me the information of when you apply, and I will settle the rest for you. So happened to be open at time is actually during our Chinese New Year, which is also their New Year period, Tet. So in Vietnam, Tet is like our Chinese New Year, 1 whole month, no government people working on, before 15 days before, 15 days after. So during the 1 month, we are preparing the document. So once the 15th day of the Tet over, we submit in. So once the lawyers submit in, I call up the chairman and say, submit already. I say, okay, don't worry, I'll take care from there. And 2 weeks later, we got it approved. So in one of the lunch I have with him, I say, hey, Mr. Bui, how you do it? You don't ask me. In Vietnam, we can settle everything for you. So that's why you choose a good partner is very critical, because they have ways in terms of relationship to overcome some of the problem for you.
Yeah, some questions better don't ask. You don't want to, as long as it's done, you don't ask. But that is actually very, very true. Remittance of monies is always also one of the issues that people need to consider, because sometimes even if they want to pay you, they can't pay you. And so we've also had those problems coming to us along the way, right? And the other one that people also forget is tax. Okay, tax is also a big, big consideration in the big scheme of things, because when they price in the amount, they may not quite consider what is the tax implications, and therefore ultimately you may end up getting less in terms of your franchise fee. Okay, so also again, in Singapore, we take a lot of things for granted because it's very transparent, but it is not the case in many other countries.
I also want to add a point on legal structure, your company structure and your shareholding structure. Because in some industries, it could be controlled, and you need to set up nominee structure. So you as a foreign company, right, may not be able to own a majority, and you could only own 49%, and you need to find a nominee who is able to hold it in trust. So you could actually get a law firm. They will charge, of course. Not many people will want to do that either, so they will charge you an arm and a leg. The other alternative then would be to have your partner, right? So that's why selection of partner is extremely important. So our experience was in Indonesia. Back then, education was only allowed 49%. So we had a nominee. So now you can own 100%, but you need 2 shareholders. So it is really, really important to get your legal structure right, because it affects your flow of funds and your repatriation of funds back to Singapore.
It also affects if you need to unravel it. It's very expensive to unravel all your documentation if you realize, oops, I got it wrong. So very, very important to spend a bit of time. Don't just run into it, but please do get your structures and your documentation paper trail connecting all the different parties in order. Okay? Now, in the interest of time, last question, all right? What are 1 or 2 key factors that you think are non-negotiable for you as you expanded on this journey? Like, this was a deal breaker, non-negotiable at all. Perhaps we start from one of the gentlemen down this way.
In franchising?
In franchising, international expansion. What were 1 or 2 of your non-negotiables? Whichever.
Okay, I think you don't seed the market, immediately. Yeah, because like what Jialang mentioned, right? You do not know your partner yet. So, in their eagerness coming to you and say, I want a master franchise agreement immediately. And then you, because you are so eager to want to enter the market, you say yes, your hands and legs are all tied, right? So you have to negotiate. And I think, like, Jia Liang mentioned, at most try an area. Yeah, because in other countries, unlike Singapore, they're much bigger than us, right? I mean, even our neighboring countries, like, for example, Malaysia, is also much bigger than Singapore. So you don't need to seed the whole market. You just work on a certain area first, see how they grow, and then give them certain KPIs in terms of number of units they need to achieve, like in a certain period, and see whether they are able to fulfill it. Yeah, before you go into agreement with them.
And maybe
I think for us is what we did is because we are a listed company, so we always do a duty, to make sure that this company are not hanky-panky kind of company. So I think this is something that we are very careful. If those who are, even they can come with you very good promising, like I got one Cambodia franchisee, I sell them bak kut teh, I give a franchise fee of 300,000 without hesitate, say, okay, I take your franchisee. You see, so I was thinking, 300,000 for one bak kut teh small store, something that how is the ROI going to be? You see, so then we do some background check, realize that there's something behind the scene that we don't take the risk on that. Yeah.
Okay, and last but not least, Huang Yi.
I think non-negotiable would be the background due diligence of your partner. Recently, we also have many people who come to us saying that, I'm going to pay you, say, 300,000-400,000 for one single unit franchise, right? But you need to get me employment pass, get my employment pass for my wife, my children, blah, blah, blah. So you, as a business owner, you need to decide, right? Whether or not these are the things that you want to do. You need to query their source of funds. So we are very careful with their source of funds as well. So as part of our franchisee due diligence, we ask our partner to declare their source of funds legally, so that we know we know absolutely who we're working with. And I think, it really impacts your brand and your reputation as well, So again, it's back to quality of partner, isn't it?
Okay, that was a lot of food for thought, and I hope that everyone here has learned something today. Now I'll throw the floor. Tricia, do we have time? I'll throw the floor open for questions, since we've got a wonderful panel here who are very willing to share their experiences with you. If anybody has any questions, or is everybody pretty exhausted?
The first. Yeah, the question.
Yes.
Good.
Hello, hi everybody. Thanks for sharing. My name is Kelvin. I'm from Munchie Pancakes. Yeah, so recently we have some leads from franchise for overseas. Yeah. So we came across this company, very good at what they do. Yeah. So in fact they ramp up things very fast. Their profile is very good. But we dig a bit deeper. So I'd like to ask your thoughts on this. Their OM is to copy people, up down to 90%. So I'd like to ask, they are good at what they do, but is it like a super partner? Are they considered as Mr. Bernard say, unscrupulous?
By the way, I'm also in F&B as well. Yeah. And one of the concepts that I recently launched is OT pancake. Yeah. A bit similar to Munchie, yeah, but different. Yeah. I'm also in Bak Kut Teh as well as in Kolobe, all right? So I think, if you go overseas, right, you want to be careful with regards to the partner you choose, because, they could open up many outlets and then after that transform into their own brand. In fact, this is something Enterprise Singapore actually told us, be careful with your partners overseas, because they could immediately just, imagine they have 15 outlets, right? Right now they are called K-Skin, but next day they can be called P-Skin, right? So how are you then going to take, legal action? It's very difficult also. Yeah.
Excellent.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Leo. I'm from Refresh Group. So we are actually owners of Yongkang TCM and Refresh TCM. So just a question for the panel is, because here at Refresh Group, we are newly setting up to do franchising. So just a question to all of you is, what is the biggest roadblock you guys had when you guys first started franchising?
Anyone again? Our staff. One of my biggest roadblock was internal talent. We didn't have enough people, right, to basically look after the franchise business. So if you really want to start a franchise and grow your franchise business, you need to have your internal team ready and available to help your franchisee succeed. So when they set up a center, for example, or a business, their business, are you there to support their soft opening, their grand opening? Are you there on the ground to help them service their customers and answer any questions? I think these are little things, right, that will really go a long way and help you onboard your franchisees so that they can go much further with you. So having the internal team structure to support your franchisee, in addition to your SOP and all the trainings, right, will be important. So you see, when the franchisees, when they come for training, you think that, okay, I've done this training, then that training is all done and dusted. But when you're actually operating the business on the ground, it's quite different. And you get lots of different questions and challenges that you may not experience yourself. So your team must be there, right, to help your franchisee.
I think for us is that internal team understanding of how franchise work. That's what we face when we start doing franchise, because probably in the early stage only probably a few of us know how franchise work. The rest of the team member, they may not know. They may think that it's just opening a restaurant, and they may think that they may be just only supporting part of it. You see, so we got to get the whole team understand, how this whole total team that's supporting our franchise, how they're going to work, how this whole methodology, then they're able to come together as a team and service our franchisee on that.
Any further?
Thank you very much, panelists. Yeah, hi, Robin Yeo from FT Consulting. Hello. Yeah, just one quick question. I think I heard that you all went to the United States, right? Yes. Yeah. Can you share a bit about your experience in the United States? Of course, it's a very far country, geographically away. Yeah.
3 hours flight. So what happened was that the franchise partner that came to us was actually, they are actually Singaporeans. They have been in States for a long while. And so when they came back to Singapore, right, to visit their family during the CNY, they chanced upon K-Skin, tried it, love it, think that this concept will work very well in America. So keep pursuing us. Like, so far away, right? Our focus was very much in this current region, and America wasn't immediate in our immediate radar. But they were so persistent, and they operate 5 ramen stores in Atlanta, Georgia. Right, so they have 5 ramen stores, and so we did some due diligence on them, as well as like they had a local partner in Singapore who is going to fly there to migrate there as well. So we got to know them, and sincere partners. And then we realized, right, through ESG, we work very closely with Enterprise Singapore because the government is very keen for local brands to move beyond Singapore. So then we did due diligence on them, and then we got a lawyer in America because it's through Enterprise Singapore America office. They introduced us a franchise lawyer. We paid about $60,000 to do the FDD, all right? And that is very much covered by the franchise fee that they pay us. Yeah, so the laws in America, right, is very strict. By right, you're not supposed to, have like payments or even start discussing your franchise concept or financials until your FDD is done. All right, so we had to be very, very careful. Yeah, so just to let you know, that's America, Atlanta. So now they started end November, early December. They're doing very well. They're looking for their second shop. And in fact, their very good friend from Seattle is actually meeting us. So maybe, who knows, we may have an outlet soon in Seattle.
You're right. US is a very tricky market when it comes to franchising. A lot of people don't realize it, especially if you start out in Singapore, because our laws here are business friendly. It's very easy. But in countries like the US, there is a whole body of law that just governs franchising alone, right? And so be prepared, set yourself time, make sure you are ready for the financial disclosures that they require of you. There's quite a lot of information, so you need to factor that into your planning.
Adding on, Lorraine. So, one is to engage the lawyer, right? But your internal team, you need a lot of resources, spare resources to work with the lawyers as well, because they need a lot of information as well. So that's where Jia Liang say, right? Your internal resource must be able to support the effort if you want to expand overseas. Touching on the gentleman Yong Kang, yeah, so even for Philippines, right, to get our product registered in the solutions and the skincare to enter Philippine market, there were a lot of paperwork. So you need to have spare resources, smart people locally in your team to work that out.
Maybe we can take one last question, if anyone has. If not, then maybe you all can join me to thank our moderator and speakers for their very insightful and generous sharing of their experiences.